During this episode, we speak with Kay Batkin, Network Director at Youth Sport Trust. During the episode, Kay shares her motivations for working in the sector, her leadership roles from an early age, and inspiration from her 14 years at YST. Kay dives into the current societal barriers to physical activity, how YST and like-minded organisations are combating them, and an insight into YST's new manifesto. Enjoy the pod. Kay, welcome to the Active Code podcast. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
It's very exciting indeed. And we'll get cracking with the question, if that's okay. So for our listeners, could you tell us a bit more about your professional journey so far, please?
Yeah, well, we'll go back over the years of time. I started off my career, wanted to be a PE teacher, all I ever wanted to do. I think I knew from birth I wanted to be a PE teacher. I'm not one of those kinds of people. I was determined. That's what I was doing. Loved physical education at school, kind of my PE teachers, my real role models. And I still remember now a real chance conversation with one of those PE teachers. And they said to me, why don't you go and look at other courses, like a wider sports development type course rather than, and then you can specialise to do physical education later on rather than jumping straight in. And I think I was just like, yeah, okay, that's what I'm going to do then. So off I went to university, went to Leeds, very proud Leeds Met girl coming from a organisation based at Loughborough University. I don't get to say that very often, but I am. And studied sports development university and then went straight into local authority from that point. I kind of never looked back. I realised why he'd given me that advice, looking at the wider sport development. So finished university on the Thursday, started an active schools role. I was working across school improvement in a local authority and sports development. So in those early days, top schemes manager, where my relationship with Youth Sport Trust first started, doing all the coaching for teachers programs, all of that work. From there, got really involved in working within a sports college. So was doing work within a sports college and school sports partnership. And realised there was a huge piece of work coming in. So I'd spent quite a lot of time working in that local authority role. And actually a huge amount of work coming in with these school sports partnerships were starting to pop up all across the country. It became quite tricky on the ground trying to deliver within sports development. And a lot of the things we'd had long established now were getting a lot more resource and being funded by someone else. So we're starting to, there's quite a lot of tension in that time of how that all works between traditional sports development and school sports partnerships coming in. So I kind of took the, if you can't beat them, I would go and join them. I went and joined and set up a school sports partnership over in Bedfordshire, one of the phase 9s, and I became partnership development manager. Really young, actually. I think I was about 22, 23. I think I was one of the youngest partnership development managers in the country at that time. So kind of rattled through a lot of those years of my career and spent some really happy time setting up a school sports partnership, but working really closely in the school. So at that time, I did a lot of work in, I was a tutor at the school, did a lot of work in delivering in the PE department, did all their leadership programs, all their BTEC. So got really into education and school and within the education landscape, but set up that school sports partnership. And from there, I went to work for the Youth Sport Trust. So I've been at the Youth Sport Trust now for coming up to 14 years, which is incredible. I never thought I'd be within one organisation for 14 years, but I kind of got hooked on the mission of Youth Sport Trust and the ways of working in the charity. I've done a huge amount of jobs there, actually. I try to think sometimes about all the different jobs. So I came as National Programmes Manager pre-2010. So I joined at early 2010 and came in doing a lot of the work leading on their competition. So I was intra-school competition lead for the charity, but leading on some big national programmes at the time. And did that job for about 6 or 7 months before the huge funding announcements of 2010. When we went to a mass restructure, I think I was put into a pool with about 55 people for 5 jobs at the time. So didn't feel that had been a great move for me in those few months, but luckily secured one of those positions and went on to be the development manager of talent and competition. And that's when we started work on the school games. So part of one of my first roles was being pulled into Steve Granger's office, where we had a conversation about Jeremy Hunt's got this concept of a legacy from London 2012. It was called the Schools Olympics at that time. Obviously, you can't use the term Olympics, but we hadn't quite figured that bit out yet. So it's called the Schools Olympics. okay, go away and draw what it could look like. Go and write me a competition calendar. What could this look like? We need to go and pitch the idea and develop that idea. And so I was there. The day School Games was created and part of that development discussion. And from that, School Games was created. And to be honest, that's been a huge part of my career. And I've spent most of my career today in and around working on the School Games. So moved through the organisation at Youth Sport Trust. My previous role to this was head of program implementation, so managing all of our programs of significant scale and reach, which School Games stayed with me through all of that, and also was part of setting up the work around the FA and the FA Girls Football Partnerships with Barclays. And then 3 years ago, I became network director at Youth Sport Trust. That was my first move away from School Games. So still am around and about School Games, just been out and done all the regional conferences. So still keep my hand in. But I now oversee all of our building our communities and networks within the education landscape. So big part of the role is making sure that we have really great connections, champions and advocates and supporters of the charity that are working on in education day in, day out. So people that understand the role. So we don't sit in an ivory tower somewhere in Loughborough deciding what should happen in education, but we are collaborating with those in education and actually led by those in education, and do some work around building relationships with other people in the education space as well. So that's my potted history of sport development.
Awesome. There we go. Kay Batkin in 5 minutes. Amazing.
Yeah, Kay Batkin, summary of my life. This is your life.
There's some incredible achievements there, Kay. What would you say has got you hooked with YST? Because 14 years for anybody's a long time to be involved in an organisation. Is it the variety of the role and the various challenges that come up? Why are you still there? Why are you still hooked?
Why am I still? I think it's a multiple. If you ask anyone at Youth Sport Trust, we always come back to the people. I think working for an organisation with so many passionate people, like it's a job for me. I've always wanted to do something that gives you real purpose. So I feel like no matter what, the years, governments change, funding changes, programs changes, we've always had a strong moral purpose. We've always wanted to use the power of sport to make a difference for young people. And we've always believed in it. And it's just a journey that you feel you're addicted to. Like we're definitely not there. There's still a massive burning need. So I just struggle to quit. I struggle to quit when I don't feel like the job is done, I suppose. And I feel like I work for an organisation that are very committed to driving a change. So the people, the energy, the commitment. And to be honest, you're right, the variety. If I tell you about my day yesterday, got up, jumped on a train to London, ended up in the Houses of Parliament for our manifesto launch, room full of about 150 people, all hugely passionate about ensuring young people all get an opportunity to be active. Mo Farah was there, Denise Lewis was there, a whole array of MPs were there, but there was also head teachers there and really a real array of supportive organisations. Left that, made across the other side of London to our Changemaker Awards event. So in a hotel in London where we're recognising 6 young people that have done been absolutely impacted and are making huge change in the world, and their start points were all in Youth Sport Trust programs. And so you feel the impact of the work, and days like that just leave you like completely buzzing. We're trying to change the future for the better, but also making an impact today, and you get to feel it, see it, and be part of it. So I think it's days like that that get you up every day on a cold January morning to say that's your job. I feel pretty proud that we can make that kind of difference, but you get those kinds of experiences.
Yeah. And then today you're on a podcast with Paul and Lee.
Today I'm in a podcast and then I'm driving up to Leeds. It's all go at Youth Sport Trust. And I love that. I love it doesn't feel like it's ticking boxes. It's all in the pursuit of a brighter future.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting you say it's around the people and the passions that are shared. I guess that comes from leadership, because you've got to have strong leaders. And I think a lot of organisations that we talk to and collaborate with tend to think that the leader is just that one person at the top sat in, as you said, like an ivory tower. But actually, we all need to work and make sure that we're creating better leaders throughout our organisations. It's not just the people at the top; it's everybody within the organisation that can be. How can people become better leaders themselves? And I think it sounds to me like that's something that's very prevalent at YST.
Yeah, definitely. Like I have a lot of friends that work in and around education, and there's some amazing leaders in and around education. But I think that we pull on such a rich source at Youth Sport Trust, because we've obviously got the people within our organisation. I have an opportunity to work with so many different people we are a truly collaborative. When you're in it, when you're in the middle of it, like yesterday, there was huge amounts of other organisations. So I get to work with other CEOs, other directors, inspirational people from the world of sport. Like yesterday, I had a chance to sit and talk to Denise Lewis or Mo Farah and all those types of people. So you're constantly surrounded and nurtured by inspiration. I don't think it's like we're just not sitting there thinking, here's Ali Oliver, who is also an incredibly inspirational leader, but there is lots of other people. It's not just we sit within our organization and that's our structure. I think we collaborate and meet different people and build really close relationships on a daily basis. So you get to meet a lot of people.
Yeah. And you also listen to people. So if you're out and about and meeting different people and meeting people from all walks of life, you're actively listening. So I guess understanding what the current barriers, challenges, headaches are, and then bringing that back in to figure out, right, how can we overcome this? So, with regards to the current landscape, if you like, what does that look like at the moment for children and young people?
I think it's an incredibly worrying time. Like, this was part of the conversation we were having yesterday. We are a charity coming for 30 years old. Should we not be out of a job now? But the world is just changing so dramatically for young people, and the challenges are just becoming greater. I guess there's two answers for me in this space. There is the misery stats, and we all know them, the huge rates of increased obesity for young people, the incredibly worrying rates of mental health problems that young people are experiencing, the inactivity, the sedentary lifestyles are just changing the way that human beings exist in the world. Like, our role in the world and our purpose in the world and in the world of work and how we socialize and how we spend our time is just changing. And I don't think we fully understand it, but we're hugely seeing the impact of it. That's why we're seeing huge mental health decline. That's why we're seeing inactivity. I don't think we've understood the implications of the way we live our life, but we are definitely seeing it. And I think we're in this huge transition period where we've got to understand a new and different way of living our life. But I also want to be a ray of hope for young people. I don't think we can if we all sit here all the time and talk about how doomed they are, like how they are the unhappiest, unhealthiest, most disconnected generation that's ever been, and they won't get a job and they won't be able to afford a house. It will happen if we constantly talk about that, and it becomes the reality, it becomes the story. And if I was a young person, if I sit here and tell that to my children, that's surely going to have a detrimental effect on who they become and what they think is possible. So I think we have to understand the challenges, and we have to keep a reality of how hard it is for young people. But we have to look at it with optimism and try to understand that we all have a part to play in a more positive message. What happens if they are the most connected? What happens if we can truly create the most physically active young generation of young people that ever lived? What happens if it's a really positive thing that we have a different relationship with the world of work? We don't all have to work. We crack that culture. So we're not working, stupid hours and got no time to do anything else. What happens if there is a different way? One of the books I absolutely adore, and don't want to preempt any future discussions about books, but What Is to What If? It's just a phenomenally inspirational book. And the first couple of chapters present a world, if we got this right, what it could look like if we all worked 3-day weeks. We still earned the same salary, but AI and digital technology took over a lot of the work of a human being and we were freed up. What would we do with that time? Would we connect with our neighbours more effectively? Would we have time to plant vegetables in our garden? Would we have time to volunteer so that more activities could be happening? Would you have this, nobody's got time to run the local scout group or the local football team? Would we all have a bit more time to do the things that are truly nourishing to human beings? And I think that is possible. We've just got to change the narrative, change the story, change the way we live, and embrace the opportunities that a future state brings us. And at the minute, I feel we're in the flux of trying to live the way we've always lived in a world that isn't the same world anymore. And once we get over that and look to be kind of exist more effectively in the world that is here now, then we can start to become happier as human beings. And young people will start to flourish.
And Kate, you mentioned a few minutes ago how your kind of role has evolved, and later on today, for example, you're up at Leeds, you're traveling everywhere, you go to loads of conferences, you're obviously a very busy person. Two questions for you. What does physical activity mean to you? And also, in your busy schedule, do you find time to fit a physical activity, and what does that look like?
Very good question. And depends what time of year you come to talk to me about it. My relationship with physical activity has changed throughout my whole life. And I think that's something we work a lot on the concept of physical literacy, not believing that physical activity is one thing to a person. It remains that, really accepting. So one of the activities we often do at Youth Sport Trust when we're trying to bring the concept of physical literacy to life for people and understanding it's about your motivations, your knowledge, not just your abilities. If you spoke to me in my birth to 30, I think that's the time we have children. If I draw the map, I took part in huge amounts of physical activity, but all of that physical activity was high intensity, competitive. So I was a netballer, played regularly netball, mixed netball, as well as in a netball league. Wanted to be around other people, wanted the level of competition, wanted that intensity. Had children, moved to a new location. You draw my curve, it drops absolutely to the floor. Like within 2 years, having 2 children, I had to really reshape, and probably I'm only resurfacing from that period of my life. I had the time to go to the competitive sport, but if I wasn't at sport, I was at the gym doing activities. Like that was how I lived my life, and hadn't got time to do any of those things anymore, and couldn't have the opportunity to put myself first. But probably where I'm at now is my relationship with and my need for physical activity has become more about time for me. So not so much of a need of that to be around other people. It's actually sometimes my escape. It's my quiet time of the chaos that is life. It doesn't need to be about that high intensity or that competition for me anymore. Like my favorite things to do, I'll walk my dog. I've recently got a beautiful cocker spaniel that hopefully doesn't bark in the middle of this podcast. And, regularity, out in nature, spending a bit of time in the peace, getting my thoughts together, or going jogging by myself, or doing activities that I can do at home so they can fit really neatly into a busy schedule is where I've moved to. And I think I would have, my 20-year-old self, despite spending my whole life promoting, would have gone, yeah, but walking's not really good for you. It's not really activity, is it? You need to be running. I need to run 10 miles, and that's the only thing. And starting to realize that by walking every day, 30 minutes to an hour, it was actually having all those impacts because I was doing it all the time. So if I'm doing it for my mental health, my happiness, my energy levels, but also my physical appearance as well, like it over a year's period of time, it had a really positive impact on me. And I don't think I ever would have thought that I had to have enough time to go out and do an hour's activity, whereas actually fitting in small bursts of different types of activities that were as much about feeling good as, seeing myself as like participating in sport. So my relationship has definitely changed. I do my best to fit it in and around my lifestyle, but it's definitely moved to more of a escape from the chaos rather than a bit more of chaos itself, which is what it probably used to be when I was a bit younger.
Yeah, I feel your pain with 2 children under 3, trying to fit in the workouts or going out for an hour or so. It's just, it seems impossible at the time, doesn't it? So I'm currently going through that transition of finding what fits in. But
just chuck a dog in the chaos. That's what.
Well,
turn it around.
Yeah,
got
a cockapoo as well. So
excellent.
Yeah, but the walk around the block, even if it is 5-10 minutes, at least it gives you that bit of headspace to think about or kind of unwind from a day. What would you say when you do get that time to yourself, that quiet time, that kind of time for me, as you put it? What type of benefits do you see in not just your home life, but also in work as well? How do those benefits translate into your working life?
Yeah, well, I am fascinated by the working of the brain. So I spend a lot of time kind of trying to understand that. And hopefully I'm a true advocate, hopefully if you asked any of the teams that work for me, of that time away. Like we are not designed, our brain is not designed to sit and focus for any period of time. In fact, we have a fairly short attention span as human beings. And it's incredibly important that we take that time away and that moment of time. So I haven't got time to go for a 10-minute walk. Well, actually, it can make you huge more productive. So if you take that time to after I've sat here on a laptop talking to you, although it's an incredibly nurturing experience to sit and work with you, changing up my environment, physical activity outside, in nature, 10, 15 minutes, even a short burst like that, coming back, I'll be able to focus a lot more effectively for my afternoon. So I might think my productivity has dipped because I've taken 15 minutes out, but all the tasks I want to do, I'll be able to do far more effectively in a far more efficient time, far less procrastination, far less focus being flipped from thing to another because my brain is getting tired and lethargic. I will come back with energy. It's often for me a way to order my thoughts. So I often try to take problems into the physical realm. So rather than sitting here thinking about, I've got to do a presentation tomorrow, I need to make sure all my slides are in order, plan my slides whilst walking around the block, come back and try and get them into a place and order, which will take me half the time of sitting here trying to plod away. So I think for me, really increased focus, increased energy, and increased creativity would be the things I think physical activity will bring to my working life, and is why I really encourage the team to do active breaks. It's the most effective way to get your brain to recover. So taking a break helps your brain recover, but taking a physically active break will get it to recover far more effectively and quickly. So that's why I think it's important. I think we try to live that out. Nobody gets it right all the time. We all have those days and those moments where it's impossible to fit it in, or you really do have to be there and focus. But if you do look at the end of the day and look back, the things you'll have achieved will be far more effective. So try to live that out. We do lots of things at Youth for Trust, like 50-minute meetings, try to make sure that people have a gap. So they have that 10, 20 minutes gap between things. You're not sitting at laptops for long periods of time. We try to do active meetings. So rather than sitting on a Teams call, can we move to a phone call while we move around? And we were up in Loughborough earlier this week on Tuesday, and a lot of our work was go out and to walk and talk. So we, based at Loughborough University, have the great environment that we can get out and about in. So how do we use those environments to move around? So yeah, I think the benefits are huge and really easy to see when you actually commit to doing it.
Quite interesting as well, okay, because I think I've been known you for almost 12 months, I think, or maybe slightly longer. I think not just yourself, but the YST shift as well, away from just sport or PE. There's clearly been a shift towards well-being and play and physical activity. And that's really coming out in what you were saying. So again, from a leadership perspective, the people that are in those positions within YST, it's clearly having an influence on the direction of where YST is going, and understanding what we need to do more in society to ensure we can get all children to engage in activity, some way, shape or form. It doesn't, like you say, it doesn't have to be a competitive sporting environment. So how are YST? I know you mentioned the manifesto was launched yesterday. So do you want to go into a bit more detail around that and kind of where are YST going for the future?
Yeah. So obviously we have our strategy at the organisation. So we launched for the first time ever in 2022, we launched a really long-term strategy. So it's a 13-year strategy taking up to 2035. Why did we do that? Because that's the life course of a child, starting in reception to when they would leave school. And we've never done a strategy. We'd look at 3-year strategies were our general approach, but knew that it's going to take a childhood to try and create some radical change. And if we keep working in short bursts, we never get that long ability to create that real change. And actually, it has really changed the way in which we work, and spent a lot of time in the start of that strategy really building the foundation so we can make sizable change rather than constantly working in short-term blocks. So our 3 kind of key points of our strategy are urgent action, really seeing the impact of COVID on young people and their physical activity levels, and just a changing relationship. We know that physical activity levels have recovered fairly quickly, but they weren't great before. So it's not like we're recovered to some great pre-COVID status. We're kind of back and now there or thereabouts, stagnating a little bit and moving forward. So we never really cracked that physical activity. We've seen that increase in sedentary though. So young people, the way they live their life day to day, sitting still more. So although the moderate to vigorous is returning to pre-pandemic, we're seeing increases across the board in sedentary lifestyle, young people sitting still, but also huge impact it's having on like health and happiness of young people. So a real commitment to make a real urgent, get to urgent action, help young people recover from the impacts of COVID and help that generation to recover. Generational shift is our next priority. Generational shift for us is about creating balance in the digital age. There's no escaping we are in the digital age. There is no escaping that the digital advancements, AI technology, all of those things are having a fundamental change in the way that we exist. I think, was it Elon Musk saying that he didn't think humans would be needed in the workplace in not that long? I can't remember what he said the other day. He was meeting Rishi Sunak, wasn't he? And in a fairly short period of time, that human beings wouldn't actually be needed in the workforce. And if we look at society over generations, humans used to be completely involved in every element of it was our hands were involved in growing and creating and building. And the machine age came in, and we've walked through all those ages, and we're now in the digital age where actually computers can think and perform quicker than any human being. So balance in the digital age isn't trying to say the digital age is bad. It's trying to say we are in the digital age, and there'll be huge advantages for the human beings from that. But we believe that physical activity, sport and play are a real antidote to the impacts of some of those things. So technology will require humans to sit. We will sit for most of our lives. We are not designed to, I think Duncan Goodhue last night said, humans aren't designed to polish seats. We're not designed to sit still. We're not designed to not move. But soon we will have our shopping delivered to our front door. We'll be able to go and watch a football match by just putting a headset on our heads. We'll be able to talk to anyone in any part of the world just by sitting at a computer. We just don't need to do the things that we used to have to do. There needs to be a counter to some of that, though, because human beings thrive and are most happy and healthy when they are moving outside with other people. They're the components that make our bodies designed to do. And so we want to create that balance in a digital age, to be able to see the physical as an escape from the challenges or the negative impacts of the digital age for young people, while still embracing the great things that the digital age will bring for that generation. And then the third thing is societal change. We have to crack society's attitudes towards being physically active. We have to make society as a whole care and understand that their bodies and looking after their bodies is a fundamental part of existing. Another book that I was reading recently was about the social leap. And it was talking about the creation of the NHS. And when the NHS was created, the list of illnesses that were in the population were completely different to the list of illnesses that we've got now. So the NHS wasn't designed to deal with mental health. Diabetes was nowhere near the rate it is now. And all of those illnesses are come about because of the way we live our life now. And all of that, I believe, not all of it, that's perhaps too bold a statement, but being physically active and moving our bodies are a huge part of being a real positive force in that the issues that we're seeing in society now. So our big long-term goal is that we really start to shift the dial on more parents, more schools, more young people understanding that the minimum expectation is for them to be active for 60 minutes every day, and that's the minimum chief medical officer's recommendation to be healthy. And we want to make sure more of the population understand that and have the toolkit. They're physically literate and able to understand how they can do that their whole life and happy and wanting to do that rather than it being seen as a negative thing. That's our aspiration. It's just a small few things we're focusing on.
No, thank you for sharing that. Very, very detailed and makes complete sense. I guess the next challenge in this is, so if we know where we're going, we know what we're striving to achieve. The how is always the big one, isn't it? So how do we do this? Who's involved? So who needs to be involved in this to make sure there is a change and YST can work towards achieving that strategy?
Yeah, well, obviously yesterday we launched our manifesto ask, and what we tried to do this year for this process was a process of open policy making. So instead of Youth Sport Trust sitting there and deciding what Youth Sport Trust want to ask for in the world, we tried to create a truly collaborative process. So we've reached the 5 asks within our manifesto by talking to lots and lots of stakeholders. So lots of other partners, people within education, and trying to be truly collaborative. So some of those things are things that we are hugely passionate about, but we are cheerleaders and champions for, and some of the things we think are fundamental at the heart of what we do. So, a really clear set of some of the things we're asking for in our manifesto are a national wellbeing measure for all young people. So we have a consistently applied and understood metric for understanding how well our young people are. We spend a lot of time in schools. There are some really clear metrics in schools, and schools are judged on things like their attendance, their behaviour. There's clear metrics for all of those things, their progress for young people, what their academic outcomes are, but we have no measure to understand how a school are doing that in terms of their well-being. So a national well-being measure that all young people participate in, and then using that knowledge to build truly transformative, innovative support for those working in education and for young people, so that we can start to get upstream of the problems. We often invest in what happens once young people have reached that point of crisis, but how can we stop dragging people out of the swamp at that point and get upstream a little bit and try to put some positive tools and strategies in place so young people don't get to that point. So there's that one. We're asking for the reimagination of physical education so it becomes a truly understood and important part of every young person's educational experience. How many other subjects really help a young person understand their body? So much of it is about their mind and their knowledge development. It's a truly unique subject in terms of allowing young people to explore their own body that will be the thing that transports them around for the rest of their life. It's not just a thing that takes your brain from place to place. It's all linked as part of a holistic human being. It's the one subject that truly looks at the whole person and equips young people with the tools they'll need to keep their body healthy the rest of their life. There is no point retaining and getting a whole array of knowledge if you leave school without the confidence or without the health to then go and thrive in the world. So it's really important that young people get that knowledge experience, but that they leave with the vehicle that will transport them around in a healthy way for the rest of their life. So we're asking for physical education to be a core subject within schooling, given the importance it needs within the curriculum, importance and time it's needed within the curriculum. Another thing we're really incredibly is a place to play for young people. So we want to ensure that all young people get experience of after school provision. We see some worrying statistics about the cost of living impact on children's ability to access. It's seen as a luxury for a lot of people, the ability to access community provision, the expense of going to a club. Some families just cannot afford that and are choosing to not put their children into clubs and activities. So we know that lots falls on schools, but we want to make sure there's free to access opportunities for all young people to participate within school, as well as access to things like playtime, and activities in school, but also ensuring they all get that really great opportunity to access enrichment activities. And number one on our ask list has been about having a local infrastructure to ensure that there is a structure in place. We know schools are completely overwhelmed. And when you hear stories about the amazing things that teachers do, despite all the other challenges that they've got, making sure they've got a really robust support system. So under Labour, we had school sports partnerships. Under Conservative, we've got school games organisers. What we don't want is the eradication of a structure and people with capacity to support schools and then in turn support young people. So a structure, whatever that structure looks like, to make sure that teachers don't carry all of that burden, have got the support they need to make sure all of these opportunities are in place for young people.
Right, Steph. I guess the burning question for us and for some of our listeners will be where do children's activity providers or sports coaching organisations fit into that? Is there a place for them? So we know the impact is there for those providers to see. It may not be there for everyone to see because data isn't readily available, but from an organisational perspective of activity providers, where do you see those organisations fitting into this and where can they support?
I think there's multiple, there's so much to be done. I think this is the thing, that the new way we have to all work together going forward isn't to be each organisation pursuing their own interests and us really uniting to say, we as a sector haven't cracked the problem. we haven't broken the glass ceiling of moving the population as a whole to be more active. It actually feels like, we're taking steps backwards rather than moving forward. So we have to start working together. We have to start being collaborative. And that's part of why our manifesto asked were very, hopefully, truly collaborative, trying to look at what other people were asking for and unite behind it. So my personal view and experience of children going through school and education at the minute, there's a huge amount of skill, energy, enthusiasm, positive role models that bringing people into the education system can really help. I know from my own children's school experience, the way their eyes light up when they have someone that they can really look up to coming in to bring real expertise and support, especially in that enrichment program, like bringing in new expertise and skills that allows these young people to get a really positive experience of what sport, physical activity or play, whatever it is that they happen to be providing in that opportunity, but also an array of different activities. So really opening up our eyes to, if we are going to truly move the educational experience of young people, so it's not just about leaving feeling like those that are good at sport get opportunities and we've got quite a narrow offer, broadening that offer and broadening that horizons. I've seen some fantastic things coming to my own children's school that the skill set of the teachers just wouldn't be able to provide. So bringing new energy, new ideas, and new types of activities that young people can experience. But also, we know teacher confidence is a real challenge. So despite the years of all the premium going in, the Ofsted report still said that there is a huge amount of teachers, I think it was 57% of teachers lack the confidence to deliver physical education. I might need to sense check that stat. I think that's what it was, if my memory serves me correctly. And all those years of investment in premium, we've got to start doing something about that. So I've seen great opportunities where teachers working alongside coaches that hold a great amount of expertise and knowledge in the world of sport and collaborating, putting those two skill sets together, pedagogy and coaching, and how it can both can be a really supportive environment. So upskilling our teachers and giving them the confidence. So the legacy we leave behind is people that are feeling confident that they can go and deliver for the young people and give the young people a positive experience themselves.
Okay, you mentioned the young people's eyes light up when these organisations, coaches, people come into school, the non-qualified teachers, if you like. Do they have a white van?
Well, we always come back to this point. I think we've tried to draw a line in the sand across organisations that there was perhaps a time where it wasn't the easiest time for any organisation out in the world. And there was a time perhaps where we were all completely rocked to our core about how we exist and how we move forward. And I hope we're in place now to say, we believe everyone's got a role to play and a huge contribution to make. And I think there is a tradition where we potentially haven't worked together as closely as we could. And we've perhaps tried to position it over contentious issues of, we truly believe at the Youth Sport Trust that teachers should be teaching the subject of physical education. And that we shouldn't, if we get to a point where we remove teachers from the classroom and we didn't have the confidence levels of teachers would go down, at some point, somewhere in the realms of time, a premium would disappear and teachers would step back in and they wouldn't have the confidence to carry on teaching. And I think hopefully we've got to a point now where we can fully understand the contribution that everyone can make in that landscape. We don't have to see it as a huge challenge to that intention, and that actually there is a huge amount of work. And me working with you guys are really looking at how you've really tried to work really hard to ensure that that coaches come with a real level of credibility and knowledge, and it's not seen as someone rocking up with a few balls, but come with a real expertise that can be added alongside that teaching expertise. And so when you use that knowledge of an expert in teaching and learning and pedagogy and children and bring the two things together is when we're going to be at our best. And I think that's why I've been working really to try and collaborate with you so that we can start to have really meaningful conversations about how can we all work together for the benefits. Actually, boil it all down, we all want the same thing: to young people to have more opportunities to be physically active and healthy for the rest of their life and to have a really, truly positive experience in school. So when they leave school, they don't leave thinking, like I think a lot of people in my generation would have, I'm good at sport or I'm not good at sport and therefore I'm never going to do it again. All young people leave understanding the importance of being physically active, the value it would have to them, and whatever that value is for them, whether that be competing like I did or staying healthy, or using it as a relaxation tool, or using it as a stress management tool, whatever it is for them, they've got the tools and knowledge to leave. And we all want the same thing. So, and the challenge is so great, we all have to work together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the true essence of collaboration as well. It's making sure that we build bridges, and we're not trying to stay apart. So build bridges, lift each other up, and look at it from a sporting perspective. Actually, it's a team sport, so we're in it together. We may have different objectives and different strategies going forward, but in essence, it all ties back into making sure that we're working together to engage more children in positive activity experiences. And I think if we're all on the same page, and everyone knows the direction where people are going, and we know their role in the team, if you like, I think for me, that's the true essence of collaboration. So, but for the record, I think the conversations we've had and the relationship that we've built over the last 12, 18 months has been ultra positive. So I know in your role as a partnership lead that, it's been very much welcomed. I know we're starting to bat. I think it's pretty much almost gone, to be honest. So apologies for flagging it up again. I promise I won't.
No.
I won't mention it again.
I think it's important what we're trying to do, and I think hopefully the place we're at is from both sides. Let's listen, understand, and like I've said, what we get to the point of is boiling down to we all want the same thing.
Okay, 14 years you said at YST. What would you say your proudest moment has been over the last 14 years?
Oh, well, there's been lots of proud moments across the time, and like I say, that's the thing that keeps me coming back and back and back to Youth Sport Trust, and keeps me motivated. That there's always a new challenge. I hope when I get to the end of my career, school games will be something I'm particularly proud of. I think it's, for me, something I feel like I've been there from day one, and now to see the scale of the school games, I think I mentioned earlier, I just went back, did all the regional conferences, traveling around the country, talking to the school games network. The amount of participation opportunities that have been offered through that program, and the journey it's been on as well. Last night we were really hearing at our awards ceremony about the difference it's making to try and crack and change that concept. When I was at school, competition was definitely for the top 10, 15%. It was me that loved sport, participated outside of school, and would have done it anyway. I would have found a way to do it. I was in all the teams, participating across, and I would have had probably the majority, me and that group of young people would have had the majority of the PE teachers' capacities dedicated to me. And what Hope School Games has started to try and do is challenge the notion of the right level of competition for the right young person, and actually that it's all about a positive experience, and that can be really different for young people, and that's okay. And actually, within school, should we be concentrating on those top level of kids that will participate and probably, participate again and again and again outside of school and in multiple sports, or should we be thinking about all the young people and getting them to have a positive experience? So hopefully school games, and there's always more work to do, and we still have more work to do, but that positive shift towards seeing all young people as having a right to represent their school and have a positive experience of competition that's right for them, and challenging our notion of what competition truly is and what it means. So I think school games is probably my proudest, but there's lots over the years. I've had the privilege of organising conferences, so standing back and seeing something on that size and scale, National School Sports Weeks over the years, just for me a phenomenal moment in time to celebrate the work that we do, but so many happy memories.
Okay, so on the school games one, you've mentioned that, I've been standing here thinking the impact that the school games has had on my daughter. So my daughter's in year 5, and if I just share this story with you. So when she went into junior school, typically the year 6 leaders would come around and say, there's a trial for year 3 and 4 for an indoor athletics or multi-sports school games competition. Put your hand up if you'd like to take part. And I'm not the type of parent I'm not a pushy parent. So I'm not always saying, you've got to do this, you must do that. It's kind of always left up to Eva if she wants to do something. But she came home one day and said, I got asked if I wanted to take part in an athletics competition at school, but I didn't put my hand up. I said, why didn't you put your hand up, Eva? And she said, well, none of the other girls in my class put their hand up. So I had a kind of conversation with her and said, look, if you want to do something, put your hand up and give it a go. It doesn't matter who else in the class is putting their hand up. So 2 weeks later, I came home and she said, you'd be really proud of me. I put my hand up for a trial out for a school games competition. I was like, awesome. What's the sport? And she said, golf. I said, Eva, you've never actually played golf. She went, I know, but I wanted to give it a go. I was like, it's brilliant. So anyway, long story short, she represented the school in their first school games competition in a tri-golf tournament in year 3. Now she's in year 5. She's literally any single trial that she wants to do, she does. I think pretty much she's represented the school at about 10 different school games competitions across an array of sports. And as a result of that, in year 5, so her and another girl now are running a club for year 3 and 4 for netball on a Tuesday lunchtime. And she and the other girl, her friend, approached the teacher to ask to do that. No one was pushing them to do it. And now she actually goes around talking to girls in particular in year 3 and 4, encouraging them to take part in school games competition. So you're talking about that story there around school games, and that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the work that you and YST put in to that transition. And she's become more confident. She plays netball multiple times a week, sometimes way too much, dance, swims, etc. But that impact that the school games has had on her in the school environment has been fantastic. So yeah, I thought it was worth sharing that.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely story and lovely to hear. And hopefully, and that again is, testament to the 450 school games organisers and the dedicated teams of people across the country, which is why we're calling for a local infrastructure, someone to have the capacity and time to help and support those schools to do those things. And like you say, someone that's got the ability to provide support so those questions are asked, because quite easily, if you hadn't had that conversation as a parent, your daughter might not have gone back with the knowledge. So not every child's got that parent to have that conversation with at home. So having the time to really understand the different motivations and barriers to why people participate is as important as putting the competitions on. We can run hundreds and thousands of competitions, but if they just attract the same young people, because we don't have the time to think, what's stopping them? What's the barrier for them? What's going to give them the confidence to put the hand up? Or let's not put it to a point where they all got to put the hand up, because I know these kids need a nudge. They need an arm around them to bring them in. And it's having the infrastructure, the time and the support to do that. There's never enough time to do all the fantastic work they do. And they work incredibly hard at a team of school games organisers. But having that is so important so that children don't just slip through. If they haven't got that, the teacher's not got the capacity and the parent's not got the knowledge, skills or expertise or time, making sure no children slip through the gap.
In a couple of months, Kay, there's a YST conference. Could you give the listeners a bit of an insight into the key focuses on the day? And if anyone wants to get involved, hear more about it, or even attend, how they can do that?
Yes, certainly. So conference is, again, an area of work I lead on. So I'm the lead at Youth Sport Trust at conference. So I try to curate the program alongside a whole group of amazing people as well. But this year we are going really clearly on schools are facing some real challenges at the minute. We know that the impacts of COVID are really playing out. We see things around attendance, a huge increase in a persistent non-attendance. So 21% of young people miss out on 10% of their education experience at the minute. That's where persistent non-attendance. So persistent is classified if they're missing 10% or more. That's 1.56 million young people that are missing that level of school. And schools are facing huge amounts of challenges around trying to improve that. And I know there's been a lot of talk around breaking that bonds of parent for years, for generations, and parents have understood that they send their child to school, and COVID and homeschooling, all those things have broken that bond and that relationship. And schools are desperately trying to deal with that impact of what's happened there. We also know about behavioural issues within school. I am married to a deputy head teacher who is a pastoral leader in school, and so I hear every day about the challenges that those young people are facing and behavioural challenges that schools are trying to tackle. And we believe that sport, physical activity and play has a huge contribution. You don't look back in too many of our programs and you won't see that things like our athlete inspiration programs have had a huge change in young people attending A lot of our programs have built resilience, confidence in young people to change their sense of belonging within a school, and also really helped young people to feel like they make a positive contribution, develop really amazing skills that help tackle some of those behavioural problems. Their ability to communicate effectively and work with others are all things we believe are taught beautifully through the power of sport. And our conference is the bringing together of that. So change the score, change their future. So change what we see as the scorecard for young people and their future, and we'll change their trajectory. So our conference will bring to life how PE, physical activity, play and movement make a positive contribution to the massive challenges that education are facing at the moment. And we've got some really great keynote speakers this year. I'm super excited. We've got John Alexander joining us, and he's the author of Citizen. And I hope he'll bring to the audience a really positive message that we can sit and wait another generation for change to be given to us. So often when we work, we talk about, well, we just need the Department for Education to, or we just need the government to, or we just need Ofsted to. And yes, those things are important. We wouldn't have been in the Houses of Parliament yesterday trying to write manifesto asks if they weren't important. But we could sit forever and wait for that change. We could sit for a whole nother generation of young people and wait for a policy change or a change in an Ofsted framework that will never come. We haven't got. We can try our best, but we can't always shift the dial on that. And John has inspired us at the Youth Sport Trust to really think about how we become citizens. So the messaging there is about how we can be a positive change for good. We don't have to sit and wait for somebody else to tell us that 2 hours of physical education is good. We could make that change in our schools today. Head teachers could make that change. Governors could suggest that change within the school. If we as a system decide that kids have a right to be physically active and should be, their health should be prioritised within education, we don't have to wait for that to be something that somebody tells us to do. We could all take action. I know it's not that easy. And I know it's there's 1,001 challenges, but we've got lots of schools that are doing it. And our conference hopefully will start to bring to life how they're doing it and the impact that that is having. So John will bring that ability to call on all of us to be true citizens and take our own positive action. And then we also have some other great speakers. We have Ken, who is the free hugs guy, who's coming over from America. At Youth Sport Trust, we always like to have a truly emotional story about people that go above and beyond to create change in the world and be a positive force for good. Ken looked at the Boston Marathon bombings and wanted to be a positive force for good. So he tried to join the marathon, but he didn't quite get the qualifying times. So he decided to make a banner and make a T-shirt that said free hugs and go down to Boston Marathon and give out free hugs to population, to all of the runners and all the people there, to try and create a different environment at the marathon. And his video clips went viral. It started a whole movement of the free hugs movement. And now he does a huge amount of work around conflict resolution, getting into the heart of rioting in America and problems between the police and the population. So we hope what he brings is, again, that positive message of a force for good and how we can all make a change. It might feel small, but it can then spiral into a huge amount of change and be a positive force for good. And he talks a lot about the power of sport and how that changed his life from being homeless as a young child and the positive impact of what he got from clubs and activities, how he found a sense of belonging, a sense of identity, and a sense of a positive contribution that he could make. What's my role in this environment? What can I contribute when I feel so disenfranchised from other parts of society? And for me, it's just an emotional time to get back to the heart of what we do and why we do it. So we hope our conference is a force for good, a moment where people can unite and get behind something and try and drive for some of that change so we can be a positive beacon of hope in a world that at the minute sometimes feels challenging and overwhelming. And we just have an amazing community, and this is our time when they all come together. So if you want to be part of our conference, bookings are open now. The program is live, so you can join, go to the Youth Sport Trust website, and you can sign up for our conference there. Again, our conferences run at as low a cost as it could possibly for a conference on that scale. It's not something we do to make a profit. We do it to try and get people there and bring people together, united behind a common cause. So conference is live for bookings now, and we'd love to see you there.
Awesome. And no doubt expect lots of hugging. I'm assuming that's going to
keynote. as a non-hugger, as a general policy, living in an organisation that do like to hug, yes, I imagine there will be some hugging. But if you don't want to participate, like me, you don't have to.
There we go. You've mentioned several books. So one of our questions we ask every single listener is around: are there 3 books, podcasts, or people that you would recommend to our listeners?
Now, when you kind of preempted that might happen, I'm known at Youth Sport Trust for my love of books. I open most subjects with, well, I read this book or I listened to this podcast. So the list I could have given you is endless of podcasts I love listening to, different speakers that I enjoy. I've tried to cut it down to 3 hopefully different types of books that I've been kind of taken by. My first one, when you kind of asked about business and leadership and something that's been fundamental to me as a leader, the book is Radical Candor by Kim Scott. Do you want me to give you a little bit of detail on the book, or do you just want me to list my 3 books?
I think listing is absolutely fine. Yeah, unless there's any key points or things you want to get.
Radical Candor is just a phenomenal book that really helped me think about a framework and a way of giving positive feedback. So I think Youth Sport Trust, we're quite a supportive, positive organisation, but the power of giving honest, constructive feedback in a really productive way. Radical Candor gave me a framework to do that. And I've done lots of work at Youth Sport Trust providing internal training on the concept of radical candor. So that's a really great one. The other one is Citizen, John Alexander, just a hugely uplifting story of how we move from being consumers that pay other people to solve our problems to empowered citizens that can make a difference. And he talks a lot about real practical life example of how we make that happen. And the third one, because I love the book, Stolen Focus by Johann Hari. Stolen Focus is a book you may have picked up a little bit, but I have a bit of a fascination about how humans exist, what it means to be truly human in a digital age.
There we go. 3 completely different books. I don't think anyone has ever known those before. Thanks, Kat. It's on the list.
Good.
Definitely. And to wrap things up, Kay, the final question we ask is: what one thing do organisations in our sector need to do to crack the active code and get more children more active more often?
I think the thing for me will be we have to start doing things differently. I mean, what's that quote? It's about if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Like, we have to start thinking about how we can do things differently. And I think the first thing we have to do is unite. We have to come together as all people with shared and common interests in getting our population moving, putting physical activity back into childhood, and try to unite our voices so we have a consistent and clear call to action that can be understood by the population as a whole, but by decision makers as well. So first thing for me is, if we're going to do it, we've got to start working together, and we've got to understand that we are all active citizens in that, and we all have to play our part.
There we go. Awesome. Thanks so much, Kay. Really appreciate it. It's been a really insightful hour. It's absolutely flew by. Really appreciate you just sparing some of your time for us. I know you're a very busy person. But
always a pleasure to spend time with you.
Thanks so much. That's all I can say. Thank you. It's been really good. Really
no, thank you very much. Yeah, it's been lovely. Thank you for having me.
And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way of doing it?
You can find me on most social media platforms. So on X, as it is now, or LinkedIn, you can find me. Or reach out to me at Youth Sport Trust, k.batkin@youthsporttrust.org, if you want to reach me formally.
Great stuff. Thanks, Kay. Thanks for your time. Take care and speak soon.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
To subscribe to the pod, search for the Active Code on your podcast app. Let's work together to get more people more active more often.